What's up YouTube? In today's video we're going to be doing a build breakdown before the breakdown on my sister's 1998 EL XR6. Alright, so my sister's had this car since like 2013, 2014, so she's had it for a long time. Say it'll be over 10 years easily. She actually bought it after seeing it at Auckland All Ford Day when it was up for sale. I think she got it for like $4,000 back then, which was pretty cheap for when you were getting into E-Series and stuff like that. So it was relatively tidy when she got it, had a bit of rust and whatnot, but the motor was strong. Driveline was pretty good, and for the most part it looked quite good. So I had big plans for it, started modding it and whatnot, and it is what it is today. So like I was saying, it's an EL XR6. So yeah, I'll chuck in some photos of how it looked when she first got it, because it's changed a fair bit since she's had it. Done all the usual things, upgrading wheels, suspension, the interior side of things, the engine side of things, it's all been touched. So yeah, it's a shame to see it in the condition it's in right now. Basically we haven't had anywhere to store it, and she ended up buying a different car that ended up taking priority over this one, and over the years this thing just started getting more and more rust, so it's yeah, it's in a pretty bad way at the moment, but it's rough and ready, and it's just one of those cars you can just jump in and drive and it just seems to go. So we'll take a look around the car and I'll just run you through some of the upgrades and what's been changed and whatnot. So as you can probably tell, body's a little bit rough, paint fade, clear coat peel. Like I was saying earlier, it's fairly rusty. And as I was sort of alluding to in the intro, this is the breakdown before the breakdown. So basically this car is going to be stripped out very soon and the body is going to go off to scrap. So thought I'd do a little bit of a video before it happens, because then yeah, going to be missing out on this car for a little bit at least until something else comes up. Anyway, so start with the exterior. Obviously EL XR6. So it's got the twin light front end and everything from factory. This actually didn't have the tick fit kit when she first got it. So it's got the EL front lip EF XR6 side skirts. So these have the smaller pod, not as bulky as the EL style ones actually are. This is actually running the EF style rear lip as well. We ended up going for the, I think they call it the shark fin rear spoiler. Just has that slightly raised middle leg. Just looks aggressive and sort of suits the rest of the look of the car. And as we're going around, this is actually the car that she's bought that has taken the priority. We'll do a build breakdown on that one at some stage. It's still in the build, and I'm not big on Japanese cars by any stretch, but that's one cool car. I would definitely own a Toyota Sora if I could. Anyway, back to this thing. So like I was saying, it's got hella paint fade, typical with all the red Falcons. But yeah, all in all, it's still relatively solid. It's just one of those things, once the rust starts, it never stops. Exterior wise, it's also got the reverse vent or the scoop. Shout out to the bro Leon. I'll see if I can find some photos of Leon's car. He had an EL XR6 back in the day with a massive turbo poking out of the bonnet. I think I ended up getting that scoop off him when he went turbo. He did a hell of a lot of work trying to get this thing shaped to fit nicely because it was so far off apparently. But yeah, it was basically a drop and fit when I got it off him. We'll go into where that ends up becoming functional in a minute. Going around the rest of the car, obviously the wheels. This thing has got dish for days. So these wheels are actually pretty bloody big. They're 18 by 10.5 on the front. So a little bit of stretch on the tyres to actually get them to fit in there. I know there's a lot of guys that don't like tyre stretch and whatnot, but if you want to put big wheels on a car, sometimes you've got to stretch the tyres and just live with it, you know. That's nothing extreme. I've seen worse. So yeah, it's got a little bit of poke in the front. The rear actually tucks in nicely, and believe it or not, the rears are actually 18 by 11.5. So yeah, these things have hella dish, man. Like, it's massive. I think we're running like a 5mm slip-on spacer in the rear, but these things are cool, man. Nice aggressive looking wheel. I think the offset on these is around 15 from memory, so 10.5 front, 11.5 rear. I've got 30mm spacers in the front, which is probably overkill, but it had those on there previously from the other wheels that it used to have, which now conveniently live on my ute, which we will also do a build breakdown on at some stage. But yeah, apart from that, that's pretty much the exterior side of things. And this dog absolutely loves this car. Hey Grace, hey, is that your favourite car? So, yeah, not really. So we'll go check out the interior next. There's not a hell of a lot that's been done on this, to be honest. Just upgraded a few bits and pieces. Obviously, if you've seen the factory Ford XR6 interior, it's not that flash really, but I've done a few things in here. So we'll start off with these seats in the front. So these seats were actually out of a TS or a TE50. I can't actually recall which one exactly, but these seats are freaking beautiful, man. Like, nice Ford logo embossed in them. They've got similar sort of texture to the just the AU XR8 leather seats, but yeah, they're the most comfortable seats I've ever had. I'm not too sure if these actually got more side bolstering than the XR8 seats, but they feel way more comfortable. So we got those. One of the boys, Oppa, actually passed these on to me. He came across them up for sale, and yeah, I went around and picked them up ASAP. Yeah, so they're AU seats. Do AU seats go into E-Series? They sure as shit do. And it's actually a really easy mod. You don't even have to change the base as such. You can still keep the sliders, the runners, whatever. And it's just a case of pulling the seat apart. So you change the seat backs over. There's two bolts on each side of the frame that actually bolt it to the base, and then the actual base cushion, it just clips on. You can just swap it over. So nice and easy. And compared to E-Series seats, night and day, night and day. Not to mention they're leather, so they're easier to clean and whatnot. So very worthwhile mod, that one. Like I was saying, the Ford logo being embossed in them makes it look that much cooler. In the rear, we've actually got an AU Fairlane rear seat as well. Do those go into an E-Series? They sure as shit do. I've actually got the same seats in my EF Fairmont Turbo. Fairly straightforward mod. You've actually got to do a little bit of custom work when it comes to actually getting the seats to clip into place in terms of where they lock, but it's not a major, and if you're fairly handy with tools, it's pretty straightforward. The bottom section of the seat, the base, that actually needs to have some slots drilled into or punched into the floor pan, and the little AU plastic clips inserted, and then the seat basically just drops in. The seat backs, they all bolt into the factory locations as per the EF EL style, which I think is probably the same as EA to ED. And yeah, it's a nice, easy, straightforward mod. The side bolsters, because a Fairlane is long wheelbase and a Falcon is short wheelbase, the side bolstering isn't quite as easy of a fit. So I've actually got AU Fairmont gear side bolsters. And yeah, it sort of ties in with the rest of the Fairlane leather, so it doesn't look out of place. So yeah, that's that. In terms of the rest of it, it's all pretty straightforward. We did have a wood grain center, did have a wood grain shifter surround. Did that in satin black, black shifter, black stereo surround. Obviously we've got this black leather steering wheel, which is aftermarket. Obviously it's got a horn there, beep beep, not even existing right now, wiring still in there somewhere. And just a Boss kit, obviously. Not really much else in terms of interior apart from aftermarket head unit. This is running J-Car Response Precision front components. I can't recall exactly what's in the rear. I think they're digital designs. Not too sure. It's either digital designs or it's another set of Response Precision coaxials in the rear. Yeah, all in all, it's relatively tidy. We did the roof lining. Me and my uncle did the roof lining probably about 8 or 9 years ago, because when my sister first bought it, headlining was basically being supported by your head. So yeah, got that all tidied up, and yeah, that's where it is right now. And yeah, also got the Fairlane Fairmont gear chrome interior door handles. Just a nice extra touch. I've got the, don't mind this is a little bit rough, this is the AU Fairmont gear leather handbrake, the chrome button obviously, you've got the handbrake boot as well. So yeah, you can basically grab these out of an AU, swap them straight over, nice and easy. Now the next thing you'll see is that the suspension of this car is a little bit lower than stock. The XR6s being Tickford spec, they come factory lowered, which is bugger all of a difference from standard, to be honest. I think it's like 20 or 30 mil lower. This has been dropped a fair bit lower than that. So from memory it's running Dobie super low coils in the front. Just a standard replacement shock from Suspension Tech. So I've been running those on this car for years and no problems. They go under the brand Powered. We're running a King super low spring in the rear minus a coil and a half, which allows it to sit fairly low. But yeah, so it's super lows minus a coil and a half, and then this custom shock. Apart from that, suspension's pretty much stock on this. Sway bars are all stock. It does have the Nolithane camber caster kit in the front just to correct the alignment, but apart from that, everything else is more or less factory. Yeah, so to finish off, we will go into the engine side of things, and judging by the fact that it has a T.I Performance sticker on here, it does have a little bit of work done to the motor, so we'll go check that out. So this actually has the 4-litre single cam motor that the ELs came out with back then. This is 98, but it's not actually the last of the 98 where they got the hybrid motor. So apparently in 98, when the ELs were phased out and the AUs were being brought in, there was a hybrid motor where the EL was running, I want to say more or less an AU top end. I don't know about the head, but I do know the valve train and everything was basically the same as what an AU would run. So this doesn't have that. So this is just the factory non-hybrid motor, but Tickford spec. So internally, it's fairly stock. So bottom end is all factory. We have obviously put the Intec 4-litre valve cover on here, rocket cover, whatever you want to call it. Not a rocket cover though. Yeah, bolt-ons wise, obviously we've got the tri-Y Kobe headers, which are basically 6 into 1. These run a stupidly long secondary set of pipes, so there's no catalytic converter on this, and then it just goes straight into a 2.5 inch mandrel bent system all the way through. Can't remember the brand, I think it might have been Chase. It had a Chase system on here at one point, which is basically just your bolt-on aftermarket system. It had a bullet resonator in the front, straight through muffler in the middle, and then another muffler in the rear, so it was way too quiet. So we modded that a little bit. Basically cut out the resonator up the front, put a 2-chamber M&H muffler in just before the diff, goes up over the diff, and that's where it got a little bit more custom with the exhaust. I ended up getting one of the boys, Jagger from JS Fabrication, to fab up the rear tailpipe section. So he put in this louvered resonator in the rear, straight piped it, and it's got this awesome looking lobster tail dumpy style 3-inch tip, which looks pretty gangster. But yeah, Jagger did a mean job on this, so shout out to Jagger. Hooked it up with this one. It actually sounds pretty tough as well, so I'll put some sound clips in here and whatnot. Back to the rest of the motor though, in terms of the bolt-ons at least. Obviously we've got the BA intake pipe there. It's good for adding about half a horsepower maybe. Custom airbox that I made, just basically perspex wrapped in carbon fibre wrap. Biggest air filter I could find. It's like a 6-inch inlet that has a bell mouth that's going down to 3-inch alloy pipe to join to the intake pipe. Obviously this thing here, it allows all the air to just go straight down into the air filter. And then yeah, it's pretty much as you see it. It is running some Dash 8 fittings on the valve cover. The PCV is still actually there. I just put these fittings in for one of my cars way back in the day. They were way too small, but for NA works okay. Obviously catch can there as well. Not that it's needed, but you know, whatever. Yeah, that's about it really. So yeah, so that's pretty much it in terms of the bolt-ons for the motor. Like I was saying, bottom end is stock, the top end is not. The top end I've actually spent a fair bit of time on. Just done a head gasket a few years ago, and basically started leaking coolant into the combustion chamber, burning it and sending it straight out the exhaust. So we drove around on that for a little while. Thankfully it wasn't mixing oil and coolant at that stage. But I think it wouldn't have been far off getting to that stage because the head gasket was fairly cooked. Anyway, we pulled the head. At the time I said to my sister, you know, if you wanted to get a little bit more power out of it and whatnot, this would be a good time to do it. Obviously you don't get a massive power gain from just upgrading the cam and whatnot, but it is reasonably nice to get a bit more torque and sort of change where the power band of the engine is and that sort of thing. Just for a bit more fun, at least. So we basically went with a cam upgrade, valve spring upgrade, had the head fully reconditioned, and I also spent about 2 weeks porting the head, basically after my night shifts at work. So I'll see if I can find some photos, and I'll chuck some photos in here somewhere. But yeah, basically this is running a mild cam from Auckland Cams. Henry basically has all the Crow profiles on hand, and he basically matched something that was close to what would be the Crow 2549 profile, which is the Crow Stage 3. I think that's the right profile number. It's a whole bunch of twos. It's like 2222549 or something like that. Anyway, it's the equivalent of the Crow Stage 3. Did upgrade the valve springs with a replacement that Auckland Cams uses for the stock car guys. So it's a Manly branded spring. Still runs the stock retainers, stock valve sizes, all that sort of thing. So it's basically just a drop-in valve spring replacement. A little bit heavier seat pressure. Still a single spring with an inner damper, so it's not a double spring or anything like that. And yeah, like I was saying, I ported the heads. So in terms of the head porting, it's all DIY, so I don't have a flow bench or anything like that. Basically just applying common sense. I have ported a few heads in my time, so I've sort of just applied that knowledge to this particular head. No idea what sort of power it makes, not too sure. It's never been on a dyno, and realistically probably never will. We ended up doing a J3 for this as well from T.I Performance. So we ordered a J3, just the blank, and I did a tune for it. Realistically, my sister's sort of lost interest in this car over the years. Like I was saying, she ended up buying the Toyota Sora, and that became the new thing to work on. So, and obviously with this thing starting to develop rust in places all over, from the sills to the pillars. Now there's rust in the engine bay. It's starting to get to that stage where it's a little bit more work than it's worth. Yeah, pretty much brings us to the end of this video. Like I was saying, just a quick rundown of the build before it gets broken down. So yeah, probably in the next coming weeks, this thing is probably going to get stripped out. She's keeping quite a few of the bits and pieces, so the seats and the interior is all being kept. The whole front end in terms of lights, bumper, all that stuff, the kit, the rear spoiler, all that sort of stuff's all being kept for a future build potentially. And yeah, the rest will get probably sold off if needed, and the body will just end up at scrap. So it's a sad end to this car, but at the same time it's long overdue. She's daily driven it for as long as she could, which has been nearly 10 years, I would say. So yeah, it's been a good old girl, this one. But yeah, I want to wrap this video up now before I start to cry about all the time that I've lost on this car over the years. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate you checking in. Until next time, chat.